welcome to Online Travel Talks, and today I am with Philip C. And Philip C is the Chief Sustainability Officer of Malaysia Airlines, and he's with me today. He's also the Chief Executive of Feuell, which is the domestic airline within Malaysia Airlines. So, Philip, please tell us more.
So I play two roles. I'm responsible for Chief Sustainability Officer for the group. I look at all things sustainability, ESG related for Malaysia Aviation Group, which is a portfolio of companies from Malaysia Airlines, Feuell, Marswings and such.
Yeah.
I also manage the Feuell business, which is a small regional airline based in Subang, where we have a turboprop operations, as well as some jet operations from secondary cities all across Malaysia.
Fantastic, and I love the name Feuell. I mean, it's easy to remember, and it's there's a real visual impact to that.
It's a small agile airline, so we really respond very fast to markets, and even throughout the pandemic, when it was really challenging for everybody, we were the first to recover and hit back to pre-pandemic levels relatively fast, simply because we were a domestic airline.
Yeah.
So domestic markets recovered incredibly fast as a result of the reopening in Malaysia.
That is very good to know.
Yeah.
Right, so sustainability, how much do you think at the moment it's really important as a brand to be shown to be sustainable, and how much do you think that influences customers' choices now?
It's an excellent question, and there's no straight answer to all customers. I think what we are seeing happen in this part of Malaysia and Asia is that the corporates, the larger corporates, the cargo customers, they're very interested in the theme of sustainability and what are you doing on that front. On the individual level, there's some interest, but it's not rolled out to a certain scale yet where there's huge demand. That's in quite contrast to what you see over in Europe and the United States, where it is really top of mind. It is top 3, top 5 of your consideration when you make a purchase. But in Asia, it's selected groups, I think, that are still very interested, but not everybody yet.
Yes, absolutely. But it's such an important topic,
extremely,
nonetheless, to understand, I think, from the trade's perspective. The more they can understand, the more they can actually accurately talk to consumers about what the facts are, because there is so much in social media. What do you really believe? So it's great to hear directly from you.
Yes.
So the plans for Malaysia Airlines is to try and be carbon neutral by 2050. Is that correct terminology? Carbon neutral?
Net zero. The goal is to be net zero by 2050.
Net zero by 2050. Yes. And that's, airlines can be quite demonised. Some people say 2050 is too late. You're held back also by, no doubt, Boeing and Airbus coming up with the initiatives that you need, and you need to influence those companies. How are you managing to have the stepping stones to get to where you need to be by 2050? It's quite a challenge.
It is a challenge. The airline industry as a whole has made a commitment to be net zero by 2050. It's a tall order, extremely hard. Especially as we come out from the pandemic, where really we have really just trying to recover back.
Yeah.
And then making these commitments in this time is a tough one. So I understand when people say that we're not doing enough, but it is a very challenging sector to abate our CO2 emissions.
Yeah.
But for us in the industry, there are really 4 key levers to really move towards net zero.
Yeah.
And the 3 are the most important, which are in-sector, what we call in-sector efforts, right?
Yeah.
The first is operational efficiencies. For example, how do we make sure we reduce fuel burn on our flights?
Right.
How do we optimize our fuel as we take across the board? How do we reduce our waste on board? But that's going to contribute 3 to 5% of your emissions, The second one is new technology. As you were mentioning just now, a lot of our emissions actually comes from the actual aircrafts that connect you from point A to point B.
Yes.
And so at the moment, if you look at the technology roadmap, you don't really see the technologies like hydrogen or electric that you see on the ground, right? And it's what you're seeing so far is for the airline industry in particular, these technologies of hydrogen or electric aircraft, they will likely have some scale only in 2040s, 2050s, 2060. So that's one of the biggest challenges you have. That said, though, there are ways in which there are improvements taking place with existing aircraft in which we can reduce the fuel burn. So that will contribute about 20 to 30%, depending on the airline that you're in.
Yeah.
But the biggest lever of all is sustainable aviation fuels, right? That is the biggest lever that takes, but it's very expensive. It's more expensive than conventional carbon-based fuels. And even with all this in place, we may have to go to carbon markets and to offset our remaining travel. And that's one of the challenges we have in the aviation industry, that although, we contribute to 2 to 3% of emissions, the real perception is, especially if you see these cloud vapors on the skies, right, that we have an outsized contribution to CO2, although it's small, but because it's a hard to abate sector, and if we do nothing about it, we could contribute up to 10% by 2050 if we do nothing. So it's very important that we in the industry take efforts now to get towards net zero, despite it being very challenging.
Yes. Now, we've been hearing sustainable aviation fuel or SAF fuel. It's sort of been coined as a term for, the last couple of years. But I'm not sure how much we truly understand what actually it is and where it comes from. And I know you can't get it at every single airport, for example.
Yes.
So could you just go through the basics for those that perhaps aren't so up on the whole term and what it means?
Well, simply put, just to give you some baseline, currently we source our fuel from conventional carbon-based fuels, which is very easy to get, right? You basically dig a hole in the ground and you get the oil coming out, you refine it, and voila, you can put it on the aircraft. But it emits a lot of carbon, right? So the difference between SAF and perhaps these carbon-based fuels is that it's your feedstock. Where do you get the materials from? And so for a lot of our SAF, it's from used cooking oil, it's from waste, it's from biomass, it's from wood chips. So it's really about the source of your feedstock that defines your sustainable aviation fuel.
And so you mix it. You literally would take, say, cooking oil with wood and all the bits and pieces and mix it together, and then that becomes the new fuel?
So you get all these fuels, and then you refine it to make it have the similar chemical properties as kerosene jet fuel. But at the moment, for the airline industry, you can't do 100% sustainable aviation fuels, so you tend to blend it with carbon-based fuels at the moment. So that's one of the biggest technology challenges we will have, which is how do we get the aircrafts in 2040, 2050 to be 100% sustainable aviation fuels? At the moment, it's still mixed with kerosene and carbon-based fuels.
Yes, it's a funny thought, sort of cooking oil in the sky and flying somewhere.
But that's I think one of the beauties, right, about using waste to basically turn it into something valuable and useful, right? Cooking oil used is considered accounted for in terms of its emissions, so you can use it. Wood, which is not meant for, which is waste wood, is also considered a very interesting source of sustainable aviation fuel as well.
Yes, it's not like we're growing more crops to then harvest, to then create something else that mixes with the aviation fuel together. We're actually gathering all the restaurants of Malaysia.
Or around the world.
Or around the world's cooking oil, which is a great thought, isn't it?
But one of the biggest challenges is that, we work with the industry to define what is acceptable feedstocks for sustainable aviation fuel. And we have a lot of challenges about food crops, because you're going to get into this tension about food security versus energy security and meet the needs. So there are a lot of requirements as well about certain feedstocks, even though they may not emit as much carbon as they do for carbon. But if you're competing with other sources, for example, a source of food, then it's also a point of contention as well. So it's very important to rely on ICAO, our industry body, for us to have clear understanding and acceptance of what is acceptable fuel, acceptable feedstock.
Yes, I think it's fair to say that sustainability is complex. It's got lots of issues to it. Nothing really is black and white. So there's a lot to think about.
It's a very good point. It's a very good point, and I think one of the things we are learning is that standards are being set. We're trying to get alignment across all the different players about what are the right ways of measuring it, about how we report our initiatives and actions, about what is acceptable. So we have a lot more to do, but the industry is taking serious action towards it.
It starts by thinking about it, doesn't it, and then coming up with innovative ideas. As I know you were trialling a particular larvae fly.
Yes,
Black
yes.
soldier, was it larvae
That's
fly?
right, that's
to eat
right.
the leftover
Yes.
food on the aircraft. I love that fun
Yes.
fact. I thought that was really, really good.
So I think the key about waste is that, waste cannot be just treated as waste or moved to the landfill. And so we as an airline have made this commitment to make sure that we have zero waste going to landfill by 2050.
Okay.
There's so many things you need to do to manage your waste. I mean, you have to reduce it. You have to try and find ways to reuse it. So we've put a lot of effort to even upcycling our products. For
Okay.
example,
Yeah.
all life vests, all cabin crew uniforms. We've actually worked with fashion designers in Malaysia to repurpose them into interesting handbags, into clutch bags,
Amazing.
into all sorts of usable fashionable items.
Yes.
Because you need to change people's mindset
Yeah.
that waste and trash is cash. There is value to it, right?
Oh, like trash is cash.
Absolutely,
Nice, yeah.
right? Trash has to be cash. And so how do you instill that belief that waste has some value so that you don't really treat it like waste?
Yes, it's sort of old-fashioned beliefs, isn't it? Sort of waste not, want not, make do and mend. Those sorts of values are now kind of
Absolutely.
coming back.
It's coming
rather
back,
than the throwaway society where we've been for far too long. We need to sort of
Yes.
start changing that. Again, it's a mindset. It starts there.
Yes.
So it'd be interesting to watch that sort of innovation come through. And you're sort of in a tricky spot, but in a really exciting, interesting.
It's very exciting. I mean, there's so
Yeah,
many things you
parts,
can do to kind of change people's minds, inspire people to really do the right thing. Of course, you have to balance. And one of the things I always think about is that we talk about environmental sustainability, but it has to be linked with business sustainability.
Yes.
How do you make sure that the work we do actually also helps us in the bottom line?
Yes, yes, absolutely, that's true. And is there anything else on the topic of sustainability that you'd like to talk about today for the travel trade?
So I think specifically in Asia, sustainability is so broad, as you were saying, right? There's so many facets to it. So especially in the part of Asia, we talk a lot about gender equality. How do we get more women participating as technical professions like engineers and pilots? We need actually that to change culture, to build the right sustainable business as well going forward.
Yeah.
Wildlife trafficking, human trafficking, it's a big challenge over in Asia. And so we have taken a lot of efforts to do that, right?
Yeah.
Managing climate mitigation. We talk about CO2 emission, but environment isn't purely about emissions. It's also about our waste, it's about water, it's about energy. It's also about how we manage, all the resources we have and adapting to the current climate we operate in. So, as you say, broad topic, many aspects. I mean, we tend to focus a lot on emissions, but it is a huge topic.
It is a huge topic. Yes, I wouldn't have thought the diversity aspect that you just started to talk about was part kind of under the umbrella of sustainability. That's quite interesting.
Well,
that you've mentioned it.
Yeah, because the big shift in sustainability is that we shift from the shareholder to the stakeholder. Who is important to you? If you think about the airline, you must first start in terms of defining your sustainability. Who are your stakeholders? Who is important to you? And then from there you translate it to clear actions.
Again, by just thinking about it and highlighting it means that obviously there will be change.
There has to be. That mindset shift is seismic, right? But you can never forget that the shareholder remains a key part of the stakeholder.
Yeah.
So, but it's just that things get more complex and more integrated as we move forward.
Yeah, wow, fascinating. So, I hope you don't mind a bit of a business update
No
as
problems,
well.
yeah.
So OTT was excited, it sounds strange to say, I'm about to say excited in the pandemic to have gone to Heathrow, and we boarded one of your aircraft.
Yeah.
And from there we actually filmed a stewardess gowning up flight attendants, how they were for their whole COVID procedure and protocols and masks and all of what they were doing. So really now, what is the COVID? Is there a COVID protocol on flights? Has that all now been disbanded?
Well, you don't need to wear a mask on board the flight. Now, our cabin crew still wear masks as safety precaution, but they're not suited out anymore. So service has returned back to pre-pandemic levels. Enjoy your satay on board.
Oh, fabulous.
Enjoy your great experience and service on board.
Yes.
Of course, there are certain things still not yet in place, like our in-flight magazine and such, but all that will naturally, gradually be reintroduced.
Yes, okay. Oh, wow. Well, that's fantastic to know that you're back to your pre-19.
Yes, and you should try our satay. It's incredible. It's world class.
Absolutely. Next time I'm travelling, I will certainly do that.
Yeah.
And so the UK market is very important to Malaysia Airlines.
is.
Can you sort of explain perhaps why that is?
I mean, Malaysia, UK is our first core point. You know, we fly 2 flights a day on our
Yeah.
A350 from KL to London. There's so many huge cultural, historical linkages and economic linkages between KL and London. Classic example, Battersea Power Station, the massive development actually had so many Malaysians involved with that.
Really? I
So,
never knew that.
so we have so deep economic linkages, and you know, the UK traveller really loves coming to Malaysia. It's a beautiful destination, tourism destination. So really, UK is a pivotal market to us. And I think what we saw this year is that when, you know, borders reopened, UK travellers were the most resilient and most willing to take risk and come back and visit us back here in Malaysia.
Yeah, absolutely. I had no idea that you were involved with the Battersea
Yes.
whole renovation. I was there recently.
It's
and
by a Malaysian developer.
Is it really?
Yes.
Wow, the architecture is also just incredible.
It's beautiful, those two
Yeah.
columns and piers and
Very
such.
cleverly done, very sensitively done to the environment, I
Yeah.
thought. Yeah, not that I know anything about the sustainability of that whole area.
Neither do
anyway,
I,
it was just
actually,
interesting. Well,
yes.
we'll stay away
Yeah.
from that topic then. So finally, are there any product changes the travel trade need to know for the aircraft or in services or anything that their consumers are going to ask them about that you can help with?
Well, I think, like, you know, as we recover, we're going to introduce a lot of interesting promotions and products coming through. I mean, we will be expanding our network, especially across Asia in 2023 as markets reopen. As you know, we started off this quarter one with very few services to London. Now we are back full-blown twice a day, right, essentially. So I think what we are seeing is that over a period of time, more commercial products, and you should try our Fly Pass. For our customers, it's very easy to purchase. It's a kind of a travel pass for you to visit all around Malaysia and ASEAN. So you fly on us back to KL, you can buy these fly passes and essentially be able to, you know, use them for your domestic travel or regional travel all across the region.
Great, and that's just simply called Malaysian Airlines Fly Pass.
Yes.
Very simple. Right, and I'm sure a lot of that will be in Malaysia Airlines online training course, of course, what I have to say.
Yes.
And I know that you've also created a course all about sustainability, which is great. So if you want to learn more about sustainability or anything else to do with Malaysia Airlines, then do absolutely log on to the Malaysia Airlines course and learn more about it. From there, all I can do is thank you so much, Philip C, for joining us today. It's really lovely to meet you and hear about what you're going to be doing and, you know, the challenges that you're facing. We'll hopefully check in with you, you know, a year or so's time to see how things are going. And we wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.